Hello everyone, it's Laura here from Laura's Creative Pages and Cards, and welcome to day 20 where we're making this really fun happy birthday card. So of course we're going to need a card base, and this one is on the landscape 5.5 wide by 4.25. Then we're going to need this sapphire piece of cardstock, which is 1.25 by 5.5, followed by this stripe piece at 1/2 by 5.5. Then we're going to need this lemonade piece, which is 1/4 by 5.5. We're also going to need the star paper. We're going to need 1 by 1 squares, 5 of those. We're also going to need a white daisy piece, which is 1/2 by 2.25. Then we're going to need another piece of white daisy, which is 4 by 1.75. And then we're going to just need a bit of our star paper because we're going to cut the embellishments out of that. So we're going to use those icons. Okay, so let's start by adding the sapphire cardstock to the card front firstly. So just 3 bits of tape there, and I'm just going to attach that about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of the base of the card. So I'm using that Versa mat below it to line that up and put it at 1/4 of an inch. The next thing we want to do is add these 5 squares onto the sapphire, but when I attach them, I'm going to make sure the gap is less at the bottom of the sapphire strip than at the top, okay, because the lemonade will actually overlap that a little bit. So I'm going to stick 1 at each end to start with the same amount of gap between the side and bottom, and then I'm just going to lay the other 3 in there to make sure when I stick them down I'm getting the correct the right amount of spacing. Okay, so it's quite important. We need to get the right spacing for it to look pleasing to the eye. If we have it too gathered at one end or the other, we just know that's just not going to be so as pleasing. So that's how I try and get my spacing correctly, by starting at each end and working into the middle for this particular card. Right, now that we've got that 5th square going on, the next piece we're going to attach is the striped paper. So I'm just going to put 3 bits of tape on that particular piece, and that's going to butt right up against the sapphire cardstock. Now that that one's on, we're going to attach the lemonade piece. This one I'm just going to put a couple more pieces on, so I'm going to actually add 4 bits of tape. When it's a little bit narrower, I like a little bit of extra tape. And that one's just going to go over the sapphire a little bit and then over the stripe, and it just hides that join between those 2 pieces of paper. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do for this card is I'm just going to cut out the stars. So when there's lots of icons like this on the decorative paper, what I want to do is I want to choose which icons. So I'm doing those 5 stars, and then I'm going to cut them off very roughly. So it's very messy, it's not neat at all, because I just want them cut off of that decorative paper so that I can work with each individual icon. It's just much easier to then fussy cut around the singular piece than try and fussy cut neatly while it's still attached to the rest of the paper. Okay, so once it's off, then I will then go through and trim off all the excess paper we don't need and have it so that I get the perfect star. And I'm just leaving a little bit of the paper border, so a little bit of the blue border around each of the stars as I fussy cut. No different to a stamped image on white cardstock, I still leave a little bit of a border because it does hide my imperfections in the cutting, and it also adds a little element of fun with that little border around it. So I'm going to go and cut all of those out. Let's get onto the stamping. So the big happy, we're using the solid image, and for this one we're actually using 2 inks. We're using Glacier and Lagoon. So I'm going to show you how to rock and roll to get a 2-tone colour. So I'm inking the whole thing up in Glacier, and whenever you rock and roll, it's very important that you ink up your image with the light colour first. Very important that you start with the light colour. And now I'm getting out the Lagoon, the darker colour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just on an angle gently rock it and roll it around that Lagoon a little bit. And I'm not pressing hard, I'm very gently just rocking and rolling it in that ink. And then when I stamp it down onto my piece of card, what's happened is I've actually put 2 colours on this one image. So you can see the Lagoon is now sort of spread through that Glacier as well. So it's a really fun way to get you know, a bit of two colours onto the one image. So this is perfect with solid stamped, solid images. And so this is my original sample, and you can just see it's a really fun way to have two colours in that one stamp. Okay, so that's the happy done, and we just need the birthday. So we need our little piece of white daisy, and then we're going to be using black ink with this. So first of all, I need to grab the birthday off the carrier sheet. It's the curvy one, which I've straightened nearly this whole series, I think, and straighten that out on the block. And then with the black ink, I'm just going to stamp that onto the white daisy, but I am going to make sure that when I stamp this image on, that I stamp it towards the right hand side of this piece of card. I want it to the right hand side to ensure I've got enough room to dovetail on the left hand side. Okay, so now that it's stamped, I can grab my scissors, and I'm just going to dovetail out that end near the B. So snipping in the middle and then coming from each corner to take out the two triangles. And then with my journal pen, I'm just going to add on the little border around this birthday sentiment. I'm not drawing a border on the end with the exclamation because it's actually going to attach to the card on the right hand side. So that's why I don't go around the end there. Perfect. Now we're up to needing to just cut out the happy sentiment. So I'm just going to trim around it, leave that little white border and cut that out so that we've got that lovely title to go onto our card. So snip, snip, off I go. Just love the magic of speeding up a video. I'm clearly not normally this fast. Okay, so there we go. So we have our happy and our birthday. We're going to attach those to the card now. So I always lay them down on the card to ensure that I've got everything I need and that it's correct and that I know where I'm going to be placing it. So out comes the 3D foam tape, snipping off a piece, cutting it in half, one on each end. And then I'm going to grab another fairly decent piece and I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to put two through the center there. So that's all I need. That's enough there to hold it on in place and also to prevent sagging in the center. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add on this other birthday. Well, not other, the birthday. So I'm cutting just a piece of the thin foam tape, and I'm just going to attach that there to the sentiment and then stick that on in place as per the sample. Oh, and just pick that up and move it in the right spot. So if you haven't pressed it down firmly, you definitely still have the availability to pick it up and move it. Okay, so now it's time to add the journal border to the rest of the card, just to add that dimension, and I just always love that little look, the look it gives the card. And while I've got the pen in my hand, I'm not overly impressed with my birthday journal border, so what I'm going to do is just actually add on a second row to give it a different look of the twin lines of journal pen. So you know what, it was fixable and I'm happy with that now. Perfect. Okay, and lastly, to add to our card is all the stars. So I'm just grabbing them all. I'm going to place them on my card where I want them to be, so I know where to actually stick them once I've placed them. And then all of these are also all going to be attached with 3D foam tape. Okay, just a small piece in the back of the center of each one is all that is required. It's paper, it's not heavy, and this double-sided tape is super sticky. So that's all I need, is just one piece in the center of each one. So 3 more to go, and that is the final of this card. So it's a really fun card, and I love being able to use decorative paper as an embellishment, and I have done it quite a few times in this series, but it's just a really fun way to bring out some decorativeness on the card. So what I'm going to do is just trim off the overhang. Okay, and that is that card finished, and day 20 is done. Thank you so much for watching.